Hello and welcome back to the deep dive. We're really glad you're here with us today.
It is so good to be back.
So this is the space where we take a stack of sources, often really heavy, complex stuff, and we just try to, extract the gold from it.
Find the things that you can actually use.
Exactly, the insights that change how you see your day-to-day life.
And today, we're doing something a little different. Instead of a whole stack of articles, we're really focusing on one specific text.
Mm-hmm.
We are continuing our journey through our daily bread, or O Pão Nosso, by the Spirit Emmanuel, which was psychographed by Francisco Candido Xavier.
Right. And for anyone who's maybe new to this series, our daily bread is this collection of short essays. It's really dense stuff.
It is.
It's meant to be like one chapter a day for spiritual nourishment. But today we are stopping at chapter 92.
And the title is God Does Not Forsake You.
Which, I'll be honest, it sounds a little bit like a greeting card, doesn't it?
It does sound comforting right on the surface.
But then you open it up, you look at the source text, and you realize, oh, this isn't fluffy at all.
No.
It's actually a really rigorous takedown of how we think about justice. And it kicks off with a verse from the Bible, from Revelations, of all places, that I have to say it triggered a little bit of anxiety in me when I first read it.
That is a very common reaction, I think. We're diving into divine justice today.
Right.
And usually when we put the words divine and justice together, we kind of instinctively wince, don't we?
Oh, yeah. You expect a gavel. You expect punishment.
Exactly. We have this deep conditioning that says justice equals retribution.
Yeah.
You know, if I mess up, I get hit.
But the argument that Emmanuel makes in this chapter is that we have fundamentally misunderstood the entire legal system of the universe. He's basically arguing we're operating on an outdated model.
He's suggesting that we're projecting our own human harshness onto the divine.
Yeah.
He takes us from this idea of a courtroom of punishment to something that looks a lot more like, like high finance banking, or maybe even venture capital.
See, that is where it gets so interesting. God as a venture capitalist. I really want to dig into that.
You will?
But before we get to all the financial metaphors, I think we need to experience the text itself.
Absolutely. Context is everything here.
So, as we always do when we do these deep dives into a specific text, we're going to read the chapter exactly as it was written. No summaries, no skipping the hard words. We want you to really just listen to the flow of the argument.
And pay really close attention to the shift in tone, because it starts with that scary verse you mentioned, but just listen to where Emmanuel takes it.
Let's go to the source. This is chapter 92 of our daily bread, titled, God Does Not Forsake You.
God does not forsake you. I have given her time to repent of her immorality, but she is unwilling. John, Revelations 2.21. Even though the revelation is replete with profound symbols, it does not impede our examination of some expressions compatible with our understanding, withdrawing from it the appropriate lessons to amplify our spiritual progress. The mentioned verse provides us with the understanding of the generosity of the Most High with regards to the failings and defections of his transgressing children. Many people insist on the rigid and irrevocable determinations of divine origins. Nevertheless, we must recognize that the hearts that are inclined to this interpretation still cannot achieve and analyze the sublime essence of love that eliminates dark debts and causes the rebirth of a new day in the horizons of the soul. If among the judges on earth there exists fraternal providence, like that of conditional liberty, would the celestial tribunal be made up of harsher and more inflexible intelligence? The house of the Father is much more generous and magnanimous than any other known in the world to this point in the religious mind. In its abundant granaries there are more loans and moratoriums, concessions of time and resources than the most vigorous human imagination could conceive. The Almighty supplies gifts to all. Actually, it is advisable for the earthbound individual to meditate over the resources that he was conceded by the heavens for his repentance, in order to readjust to the righteous paths. The prisoners of the concept of an implacable justice ignore the tremendous intercession from the Almighty that manifests itself in 1,000 different ways. Therefore, all who seek his own personal elimination from universal love are aware that God always provides, and that it is necessary to learn how to receive.
It is necessary to learn how to receive. Okay. There's so much packed into just those few paragraphs, but I have to back up. Right to the very beginning, that verse.
The verse from Revelations. Yeah.
Yes, I have given her time to repent of her immorality, but she is unwilling. I have to be honest, when I hear that, I don't hear generosity. I hear a threat.
I get that.
It sounds like a parent standing over a child saying, I gave you 5 minutes to clean your room, you didn't do it, and now you're in big trouble.
That is the default human filter, isn't it?
Right. It focuses on the failure part. She's
Yeah.
unwilling. It just feels like the setup for a smiting.
Right.
So how does Emmanuel look at that exact same sentence and say, look at the generosity. Am I missing something here?
Well, you're looking at the end of the sentence. Emmanuel's looking at the beginning.
Okay.
Look at the subject and the action. I have given her time.
I have given her time.
His entire argument rests on those 5 words.
Mm-hmm.
The verse acknowledges she was already being immoral. The crime, if you want to call it that, had already happened. And yet, the immediate reaction from the divine wasn't a lightning bolt. It wasn't immediate destruction. It was an extension.
So the headline isn't "you failed." The headline is "you were given a runway."
Precisely. It is all about the suspension of the sentence.
Mm.
Emmanuel is pointing out that we get so obsessed with the unwillingness, with our own guilt, but we completely overlook the fact that we're still here.
Yeah.
The fact that the person in that verse is even alive to be unwilling is the proof of mercy.
That is a massive shift in perspective. It's like we're
Yeah.
all sitting around waiting for the other shoe to drop, and Emmanuel is saying the fact that the shoe hasn't dropped yet is the point.
Exactly. And to prove it, he uses this really fascinating logical argument. He compares the celestial tribunal, God's justice, to our own earthly legal systems.
This conditional liberty part.
Yes. In modern terms, we'd call that parole or probation. Now think about that. Human beings are flawed. We are biased, we get angry, our systems are often really broken. And yet, even we have figured out that just locking someone up forever for every mistake isn't always efficient or kind. We have built-in mechanisms for second chances.
Right, yeah. We have parole boards. We understand that rehabilitation is a thing.
So Emmanuel asks this really pointed question. If flawed human judges have enough fraternal providence to offer conditional liberty, why in the world would we imagine that God is worse than we are?
Well, when you put it that way, it sounds ridiculous. Would the celestial tribunal be made up of harsher and more inflexible intelligence?
It forces you to confront your own bias. If you believe in a God who is just waiting to crush you for every mistake, you're essentially saying that God has less emotional intelligence and less mercy than a random county judge.
It's the logic of the lesser to the greater. If the lesser, that's us, can be kind, then the greater God must be infinitely kinder.
Correct. Emmanuel calls that scary view of God retrograde. He's implying that if your view of God is harsher than your view of, say, your best friend, you've got the wrong God. You're worshiping a projection of your own fear, not the sublime essence of love.
Okay, so we've established God is at least as nice as a parole board. I'm with you. But then the text takes this turn that I really want to unpack. He stops using legal language, and he starts using economic language.
The abundant granaries.
Yes. He talks about loans and moratoriums. Now, I don't know about you, but usually when I hear about loans and moratoriums, I just get stressed out about my mortgage.
Right.
But here it felt incredibly hopeful. Let's break these down. What is a moratorium in this kind of spiritual context?
Well, in the financial world, a moratorium is a legal authorization to delay the payment of a debt, right? It's basically a freeze on consequence.
Yeah, freeze on consequence, okay.
Now,
Yeah.
apply that to the law of cause and effect.
Yeah.
Or karma. We know that every action has a reaction. If I act with immorality or if I hurt someone, I create a debt.
The bill should come due.
It should. Suffering should happen.
But it often doesn't. Not right away, at least.
Because of the moratorium. Emmanuel is suggesting that God grants us these massive, invisible delays. We're not getting the instant karma we probably deserve. We are getting a grace period.
A pause. So if I do something stupid today and the roof doesn't immediately cave in on me, that's not just luck. That's a moratorium.
It is a concession of time. It's the universe saying, okay, you made a mess. We're going to hold back the consequences for a bit. We're going to give you time to fix this, to learn, to grow strong enough to maybe pay that debt later in a better way.
That completely changes how I interpret just a normal day. If I'm having a regular Tuesday where nothing bad is happening, I usually just take it for granted. But Emmanuel's saying that Tuesday is a gift. It's a loan.
In its abundant granaries, there are more loans than the most vigorous human imagination could conceive. I mean, think about that word loan. What are we being loaned?
Time, obviously.
Time, yes, but also your body. Your physical body is a loan. It's a machine you didn't build that's been lent to you for a few decades.
Right.
Your intelligence, the people in your life who support you, these are all resources being fronted to you buy the house of the Father.
This is where that venture capitalist idea comes back in.
It really fits perfectly. Think about a startup company that's failing. It's bleeding money. The product isn't working right. Logic says,
Yeah.
shut it down.
Yeah.
Liquidate the assets.
Yeah. Cut your losses.
But a venture capitalist with a really long-term vision might say, no, wait, I see potential in this founder. I'm going to inject more capital. I'm going to give them another round of funding, another loan, because I believe they can pivot.
So God is the angel investor.
Yeah.
And we are the failing startup.
And the loan is another day of life,
Mm.
another opportunity. He keeps extending the runway because he believes the return on investment, which is your spiritual growth, will eventually be worth it.
I love that. Spiritual saved money.
Okay.
It makes me feel less like a criminal on trial and more like, well, like a project, a work in progress that has backing.
Exactly. You are an investment.
But here's the tricky part. If the granaries are so full and the loans are being handed out constantly, why do so many of us feel like we're broke? Why do we feel abandoned or punished all the time?
Emmanuel answers that directly. He identifies this psychological barrier. He calls us prisoners.
The prisoners of the concept of an implacable justice?
That phrase is so vital. Notice he doesn't say we're prisoners of sin. He doesn't say we're prisoners of God. He says we are prisoners of a concept.
A mental prison.
It's a perceptual blindness. If you are fundamentally convinced that the universe is hostile, if you believe that justice means punishment, you literally cannot see the help when it arrives. You're blind to it.
It's like if you're cowering in the corner expecting to be hit, you don't even see the hand that's reaching out to help you up. You only see the rod, not the hand.
That is a perfect analogy. You just block the signal. The intercession, as Emmanuel calls it, it manifests in 1,000 different ways.
Yeah.
But if you're tuning your radio to the frequency of guilt and doom, you will never, ever hear the music.
This implacable justice idea, it's actually a defense mechanism, isn't it? Because if I believe I'm just being punished, then I can just sit there and feel sorry for myself.
Bingo. There's a strange comfort in being a victim. If God is just some mean judge, then I don't have to do anything except suffer. I can just say, look how unfair my life is.
But if God is an investor giving me a loan,
Then you have a responsibility. You have to invest that loan. You have to readjust to the righteous paths, as the text puts it. Receiving the help means accepting the work that comes with it.
which brings us to the final sentence of the chapter. And honestly, this was the one that made me pause the longest. It is necessary to learn how to receive.
Learn how. It implies it's a skill. It's not something that's automatic.
Why do we have to learn to receive? You would think if someone offers you a gift, you just take it. Why is that so hard?
Because true receiving requires vulnerability. It requires dropping the ego.
Mhm.
To receive help, you have to first admit you need it. And then you have to stop blocking it with your own anxiety.
I was reading some study notes on this, and I saw this great analogy about a vessel. Like, the rain is falling everywhere, the abundant granaries are open, but the amount you actually catch depends on what you're holding.
Yes, the bucket analogy. It's
Eh,
perfect.
yeah.
If you approach life with cynicism or fear or that unwillingness we saw in the verse, you're basically holding up a thimble. You catch one drop, and then you say, see, God only gave me a drop.
But the problem wasn't the rain, the problem was the thimble.
Exactly. Learning to receive is the process of widening your vessel. It is about trading in that thimble for a bucket, or maybe a truck.
So what does a truck look like in this metaphor? How do we build a bigger truck to catch all these loans?
The truck is active observation and gratitude.
Yeah.
It's waking up in the morning and asking, where's the resource today? Instead of asking, what is going to go wrong today? It is actively scanning your life for those 1,000 ways that help appears.
And realizing that the help might not look like what you expect it to look like. Right. And it might not be a check in the mail. The loan might be a difficult conversation that finally clears the air. It might be a loss that forces you to change direction. That is also a resource. That is also a concession of time to help you readjust.
That goes right back to the unwilling part of the verse. She is unwilling. If God is the banker giving us the loan, being unwilling is it's like refusing to look at the bank statement because you're afraid of the numbers.
Or refusing to pivot the business strategy. We just keep doing the same destructive behaviors, the immorality, even though we've been given all this capital to change. The tragedy isn't that God punishes us. The tragedy is that we burn through the runway doing the same old thing.
But even then, the chapter seems to imply the loans just keep coming.
I do, until eventually the debt becomes so unmanageable, it forces a restructuring. And that is what we often call suffering. It's a forced restructuring because we ignored all the moratoriums. But even then, and this is so key, The goal is never destruction. It is always rehabilitation. The rebirth of a new day, as Emmanuel puts it. That is a much, much better story than the angry judge.
It is the truth. The resources are there. We just have to be willing to see them.
So let's try and make this practical. We have listeners who might be going through a really rough patch right now. Maybe they feel like they've exhausted all their chances. What does this chapter say to them?
It says, you have it. If you are breathing, you have a loan. If you are listening to this right now, you have a resource. The very fact that you are here means the celestial tribunal has voted in your favor. They've granted the extension.
The moratorium is active?
The moratorium is active. You have not been forsaken. The real question is, what are you going to do with the time?
I want to give everyone a little challenge for the week, a way to practice, widening the bucket.
Please.
For the next 24 hours, just try and spot 3 loans. 3 things that happen to you. Maybe a stranger holds a door open. Maybe you get a sudden idea that solves a problem. Maybe you just get 10 minutes of quiet coffee time. And instead of just brushing those off as random, label them.
Label them as intercessions. Actually say to yourself, this is a resource from the granary.
Exactly. This is my venture capital. Validate the help. I really think once you start looking for it, you realize it's absolutely everywhere.
And when you validate it, you step out of the prison, you stop being a prisoner of the concept, and you start being a participant in the abundance.
And that is just a much better way to live.
Much better.
Open your bucket. That's going to be my mantra for the week.
That is a good one.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It is always a pleasure to unpack these texts. And remember, the source material is always there waiting for you.
Until next time.
We'll see you in the next deep dive. Take care.